Hey there everyone, Mazrock here, and today we're going to be going over a complete guide to the 9.0 Shadowlands Affliction spec. This has been my absolute favorite edition spec of Affliction in a very, very long time. I really, really like it. It is both good in dungeons and it is good in raids. Of course, Affliction was doing really, really well in raids towards the interior BFA, but now it's cross the mark. It's really, really good, and it's also really, really good in dungeons. There's pros and cons to Afflictions in dungeons, but we'll get to that as we go on. So first things first, let's talk talents. So with the talents, Drain Soul is your go-to. Nightfall doesn't proc enough, it doesn't do enough, and it's just not where you need to be, but it also works well with something else, and we're going to discuss that later. My main play is Siphon Life. Absolute Corruption is very, very good on fights that I swap over to for Sun King Salvation, as well as Sired and Athreus. Demon Skin, Burning Rush, really your choice here. Do you need more movement? Or do you need on-demand bursty 50% movement, or do you need more Leech? I prefer more Leech in most scenarios, but that's really your guys' call. Phantom Singularity. Now this one here has been surprising. I've been asked this a lot. In AoE scenarios, which one do you go for? Vile Taint or Sow the Seeds? Now, Sow the Seeds just is not good. Let's just throw that one away. I honestly think Sow the Seeds, they should change it. Instead of 2 seeds, it maybe spreads Agony as well to 4 targets or something. That's kind of my idea where they should go with it. Make life a lot simpler and a lot more fun, but that's not where we're at. Vile Taint cost a soul shard, and soul shards now are worth more than they ever were in BFA. And in all honesty, it's just not that much damage, and the slow is not that much needed. Phantom Singularity actually deals more damage to more targets above the Malefic Rapture. So in AoE scenarios, Phantom Singularity is still your main play. I don't change that at all. It just stays on. It's just better. Mortal Coil, this here is a 20% heal. Useful in all scenarios, whether it horrifies the target or not. So if you are in need of a quick health at the cost of a GCD, you can heal for 20% on a raid boss. Get in a little bit closer to your 20 feet, I think it is, to 20 yards, 20 yard range. You gotta get in a little bit closer, but if you are and you can get that off, it's an instant 20% heal, alleviating some stress off your healers. I use it quite a bit. It is very, very worth having that on your bar, and it's useful in all scenarios. So we either dungeons or raiding, it's really the better play. Haunt has been my absolute go-to, an increase 10% damage. It is a dot, so it does stack with Malefic Rapture. So Haunt has been my go-to here, and as well as Dark Soul Misery. It's another Lust. It's a 2-minute Lust, plain and simple. There doesn't need to be much more said about it. 30% haste for 20 seconds is huge. Makes all your dots tick faster, your GCDs. It's just really, really good. It's all around fantastic to have. So when we go over to the soul conduits, now I did cover these in depth in another video. What I usually play as a general focus, I keep Focus Malignancy, Fell Celerity. If you do notice that you're using your gates a lot more, and you'd like an extra movement boost, this one here is perfectly fine to use as well. Have fun with it. I personally use Diabolic Bloodstone, but Resolute Barrier is a fine pick as well. There's no problems on each. And as a general final potency conduit, I'm keeping Corrupting Lair. It's nice, no matter single target or multi-target, it's nice to get Dark Lair down to get more of them off. Obviously, in multi-target scenarios where you can spread more agonies, Dark Lair will get reduced even further. But even in single targets, I notice it brings it down to about 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes and 20 seconds, between 2 minutes and 20 seconds, 2 minutes and 40 seconds, which is just more of them, and that's what I really like. But if you want to, you can absolutely make the case for rolling Agony. The increase, your Agony's duration is increased by 5 seconds or 5.6, depending on the eye level of your conduit. Really, really good to have. I enjoy it. I've used it. It's good in scenarios where I know I don't need Dark Glare and to be paired up with Dark Soul Misery as much. It's good. If you're running Night Fae, which for Affliction I highly recommend you do, Soul Eater is a very good one to have for on-demand burst damage. Soul Rot already hits like a truck. It is a big dot on your target that works with Malefic Rapture, and increasing that damage and radius by 35% is great. It is a great damage increase. Really with Affliction, there's no bad conduit. It's just which one do you want to use for the time being. Now, we're recently progging on Sludge Fist, and I made the change over to Cold Embrace, because Shadow Embrace increases the damage done to your target as long as you can maintain it, which you maintain it through Shadow Bolts or Drain Souls, Drain Soul being the easier one, or Haunt. So that way, just doing your regular rotation and draining soul, all you need is a tick for that to refresh. It doesn't need to go through the whole thing. So that's why Drain Soul is a little bit better for this. Because Shadow Bolt, you have to go through the entire cast, let it hit, and that counts as one, versus Drain Soul, a tick will refresh it back to its norm. So it's much, much, much easier to maintain on single targets as well. Shadow's Embrace, there have been a couple videos out on this. It is very difficult to maintain on multiple targets. So this is why this is a pure single target. If you need a single target boost and you to really get that up there and a noticeable one, put Cold Embrace on. You will not regret it. It is a fantastic conduit to have. For which one I'm running Naya for the Soulbind. Because right off the bat, whenever you use Soul Rot, you gain 8 stacks of the Mastery, which is 25 Mastery for 30 seconds. The stacks can overlap with more damage and stuff, but you gain 8 stacks for using Soul Rot. Mastery increases the damage of all your dots and your Malefic Raptures. It just pairs so well together. It really, really works very well together, and there's no complaints. So really, that's how I've been going. I used to be a Necrolord Affliction, until I noticed I went into a dungeon, we pugged another Affliction lock, and similar eye levels, similar play. I know I'm not a bad Warlock. I'm not the best by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm not bad, and he was wrecking me in damage. And he literally said, Soul Rot, Night Fae, Naya. And I made the swap and immediately noticed a massive damage difference. It really, really is. There is a best in slot covenant for Affliction Warlocks, and it is absolutely the Night Fae. For choice of demons, now here I have my Voidwalker out, so tanking scenarios, solo play, just go to. Now for raiding, 2 different options here for now. There is the Imp. The Imp actually, from my damage calculations, deals about 1.5% more damage throughout a raid fight than your... no, here I have it as an observer, but it's your Fell Hunter. So your Imp will deal more damage, but your Fell Hunter will give you a kick. So fight by fight, make your judgment call. If you need more kicks within your raid team, for Mythics, I absolutely go with the Fell Hunter for those kicks, because there's a lot of them that go off and they're very, very well needed. But for raid scenarios, like if there's no kicks that occur in a fight, I'll have the Imp out. But if there's a few kicks that need to be happening or some that are missing, I'll throw out the Fell Hunter. And that's just the way to go. I'll sacrifice a little bit of damage for doing raid mechanics right. Now, one of the things that this is going to change is when you get your last Soulbind. So this will be next week, actually. When you get the last Soulbind, not the last Soulbind, but the last conduit on the node, Naya's Poison. Now, your interrupts apply Naya's Paralytic Poison to your target, dealing X amount of damage, and when they get kicked again, deals more damage. This is passive. I don't know if it doesn't state here that it needs to be a successful interrupt, so come back at me later once I've tested that, and we'll find out. But aside from that, your Fell Hunter would definitely be the one to go through either way once you get that node. Just generally speaking, more damage for something you should already be doing anyway, which is, kicking stuff. Best way to go. Yeah, so that's kind of your basics. On my bar right here, I usually start a fight, so we'd have our pull 20 counter, of course. So let me go over to a dummy. Now, there's really 2 ways to do this. So what I'll do here is I'll actually put out my Imp. As your pull counter goes off, when the 2 starts to disappear, I open up with Haunt, Agony, Unstable Affliction, Corruption, Siphon Life, Phantom Singularity. I use my Trinket and Soul Rot, and then I'll pop both my cooldowns, and then you just go back to Malefic Rapture spamming, and keeping that nice Shadow's Embrace. So right here, that's one you want to keep up as much as possible, and you want to keep up your dots to make sure that you're within your pandemic windows as much as you can. You're very rarely getting a full Drain Soul off, but the point of Drain Soul isn't to get a full cast off. It is to keep that Shadow's Embrace up. That's the whole purpose. And then I'll just keep casting Malefic Raptures, and just keep on going. Now, when I notice my Phantom Singularity is starting to come back from cooldown, I'll hold off on Malefic Raptures for a time being, and that way gain a few soul shards. So definitely the way to go there in raid and whatnot. Now, so that is my kind of raid single target opener. It's been good. I've been enjoying it. It deals good damage. It's a lot of fun. I don't have everything up here. So what I'll do is, where's my imp? There he is. Come here, buddy. So we go over to the Swarm training bunnies. Now, my opener for a mob in a mythic dungeon is a little bit different. So what I'll do is I'll first, on 3 targets or less, I'll get Agonies on each. I'll put up a Corruption, Seed of Corruption, Soul Rot. Now here I would also Phantom Singularity, but it's not up. Then I'll get Unstable, Haunt, and you know what? I won't even focus at all on Phantom Singularity until I need a burst on a target, or I have the opening, and then I'll do it there. So that has been, that's kind of my opener there, and if you need to use Dark Soul Misery and Dark Glare on a cooldown, you can do that too. It's really, really useful, not on all mobs, not just not just on bosses, especially on fort weeks. Use those cooldowns. Very, very important to note and say there. That's kind of my main goal. Your best legendary, the one that I just generally keep equipped, is the Relic of Demonic Synergy. It's an all-around good legendary. Intelligence right now in this stage of Shadowlands is valued more than anything, and the increased damage. The increased damage from your pet and to your pet are just very synergistic and work really, really well. So having that nice damage amp is very nice. Now, one thing we've been doing on Sun King Salvation for there is I will actually equip the Dark Strikers, the Sacrilashes. So corruption damage is increased by 15%, and any effect target by your corruption also has their movement slowed by 50%. What I do is when the Phoenixes come up, I make sure the first thing I do is pop corruption on them. And the way we move throughout the fight and deal with the fight, they're not an issue. It won't deal enough damage on its own to kill the Phoenixes, or at least kill them so slowly that you don't have to worry about it until about halfway through the shade. I sacrifice a little bit of damage for that, but again, raid mechanics win out over DPS, in my opinion. They're also really, really good for PvP, and you can get to annoy a lot of people. One thing I've been doing is applying Corruption and Curse of Weakness. You just, people start like running and then just grinding walk halt. It's been really, really fun. So not a bad option to have there. All in all, Affliction performs really, really well throughout the entire raid. There's not a fight where it's not good. It's performing very, very well in Mythics on both Fort and Tyrannical due to the easy spread of your dots. The packs, the mobs will be alive long enough for you to really be able to set up long enough on Fort weeks. One thing that I have been doing is if I'm running with a Fire Mage is let me know if your Combustion's up for the next pack, because we all know what a Fire Mage Combustion can do. I'm not popping big cooldowns for Combustion. I'll wait until the next pack, and that's what you should be doing anyway. Rotating CDs within your party, so that way there's always a big damage and it regularly going down. That way you can work with mechanics like Bolster or, you know, things like that. So it's always something to think about and always something to do. Affliction's utility, right off the bat, is fantastic. The Demon Gates have been used throughout the raid. The Portal has been fantastic. Saved my life in Zymox a couple of times when I've screwed up. Affliction is really, really good if you prepare to use it. If you're just winging it for your gates or things like that, it's you're not going to get as much utility or as much use out of it. But if you prepare with a fight to use it, like the Demon Gates, placing them on Hungering Destroyer to get out of the way of the Consume, range can immediately get back into a spot where they can start dealing more damage. And it's just a nice flow that keeps going instead of having to run out. An entire party can move together with the miasmas. It's just fun. It really works really, really well, and it's rewarding. Of course, there's your health cookies. I mean, the utility that an Affliction Lock or Warlock in general brings to a raid is fantastic. The damage is really, really good on Affliction right now, both in single target and AoE. Although, the more AoE, the less I find it kind of brings, because it's really insanely difficult to manage all of your dots once you start getting to 5, 6, 7 targets. Which Sun King seems to be the one that's a little bit more of a struggle on. Aside from that, I think Affliction is fantastic throughout the entire raid. It works really well. You bring a lot. Not to forget the Soulstone Brezes, the curses, because one thing that I've been doing during Council of Blood is I'm upkeeping a Curse of Tongues on Frida, which really allows a lot more time to get the kicks, and it really spreads out her attacks, because if she's taking an extra 30% to cast a spell, and you wait until the last portion of it to kick it, she's really starting to waste her time, which means you're dealing with less mechanics as a raid. So that's fantastic. On big heavy bosses, the Curse of Weakness lasts 2 minutes, much easier to maintain, but increases the time between enemy attacks by 20% for 2 minutes. Tanks love this. Why wouldn't they? They're not getting hit as hard. And if your tanks aren't getting hit as hard and they like it, guess who loves it even more? Your healers. So this isn't something that I will place on like every mob pack. I'm not worried about that in Mythics as much. But a heavier mob pack, like a Goliath in Spires, that hit much harder, Curse of Weakness is really good to have on it. Take the GCD, work it, you will notice a big difference. But it's just these little things that you can do and notice that really, really help, and is a very, very good utility to have. Aside from that, Affliction is really dot management. Make sure you're getting your dots up. Make sure you're keeping your dots up. One little thing that I did notice that I haven't noticed a lot of other people do is your Agony, Corruption, and Siphon Life, you don't actually need to see the target. You can be facing your back to the target. So if you're running away from a Hungering Destroyer, actually, you can re-Agony, re-Corruption, re-Siphon Life. Now, it might not be during a pandemic window, but making sure that those constantly go up is really, really good. It's super solid all around, and it's a really fun, engaging spec to play. But Affliction is one of those specs that isn't reactionary. You have to plan it. During Sludge, you have to make sure that all of your dots are refreshed for when he hits the pillar, so you can Malefic Rapture as much as you can. You do not want to be refreshing dots when you could be doing Malefic Raptures, because that's the whole point. So I will refresh them off Pandemic as fast as I can right before I know he's going to hit, so then that way when he hits, I can just spam 5 Malefic Rapture shards and get that big damage in without having to worry about refreshing all of my dots to keep them up. Because a refresh isn't going to do as much damage as a Malefic Rapture, but you need them up to Malefic Rapture. So pre-planning is absolutely the proper way to go. Think about the fights ahead of time. Think about who you can Agony. During Council of Blood, I try and keep an Agony up as best I can on all 3 bosses while at the start. Not for the damage, but for the shard generation, because each Agony tick has a chance to refresh a soul shard, which means more Malefic Raptures. So what I do during Council of Blood is we start with Niklaus, get him dotted, Curse of Tongues Frida, put an Agony on Stavros, boom, I'm Malefic Rapturing Niklaus, and that's kind of my general rotation. Niklaus goes down, on to the next, and I do the same thing. So that way you're trying to maximize as much shard generation as possible, and you need to make sure that you have Unstable Affliction on at all times on a target, especially while Malefic Rapture is going off, because that's 20% increased Malefic Rapture damage, again, depending on your Soul Conduit, while that's happening. That's huge, because Malefic Rapture is absolutely your biggest source of damage. For me right here, it's 25% on that last pull. and it wasn't, and I didn't even really try that hard. So usually it's between 36 to 40% of my damage when you're doing it right. Aside from that, we've covered soul conduits. I've covered soul conduits more in depth in another video. So if you want to check that out, I'll put the link down in the doobly-doo. Again, if you're Necrolord, it doesn't synergize very well with Warlocks. I'm sorry. Venthyr, I've tested it. It's hot garbage right now. I honestly think Venthyr and Necrolords are going to get big buffs across the board because almost nobody's playing with them. Kyrian is a very competitive option if you're thinking about, joining the Kyrian Covenant. It is a competitive option. It's not bad. It would be a little bit better in Mythic Plus, but it requires you to time out your soul shards. So if you know a target is about to die while you have your Scouring Tython, you need to make sure that you've depleted your Malefic Raptures. You have no more soul shards, because when he dies, you're going to get booted back up to full. But if you already have 4 or 5, it's completely wasting the way the mechanic works. So it takes a lot more planning and judgment on your part. Maybe you're Malefic Rapturing when you're not ready to, just to spam them out so you can get 5, you can get some dots out and kind of flow a little bit more. So it's not a bad option, it just requires a little bit more attentiveness on how to play properly. That's really kind of it for Kyrian. It's not a bad option. It's really not. Just Soul Rot hits like a truck. It lasts longer, and it's affected by your Dark Glare. So Dark Glare, I did not cover this. It actually does extend the duration of all of your dots. So it makes life a lot easier for her. That's why I like Corrupting Leer, getting that down so I can get the big haste boost while my dots are up, and then it's just Drain Souls and Malefic Raptures. Boom, 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 boom. Keeping up Shadow's Embrace and working there. All around, Affliction Warlock is in a very, very good spot. I've got very little negative to say about it. There's not a lot of cons. The only time you're going to notice your damage suffer is if you're doing a mythic with 2 very high burst class. Mage Consumptions and Wild Spirit Marksman are 2 that I really try and plan around their CDs, because if you don't, you're just gonna be left in the dust. So try and know when their consumption's up. Try and know when their Wild Spirit's about to come up, because you require ramp up to do damage versus them. They just place it and it's just boom, explosions. So that's really it. I stream on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Come on by, check it out. It's Warlock and Warrior content for the most part, but I'm thinking about maybe some alts. I have no idea. I've got 4 characters that are max level. I have no idea what I'm doing anymore there. Affliction is my main. I have a Proc Warrior that's close behind her for the alt raid. It's been a lot of fun. Come by, check that out. Every Sunday is D&D. We're running Rime of the Frost Main right now. It's live on stream. It's been a lot of fun. Come on by, check it out. And it's generally been a good time. So I hope to see you guys on the stream as it continues to grow. We just recently got affiliate on Twitch, and that is growing as well. We just reached my first little sub benchmark that I was hoping to hit within by the end of the month, and we did hit it, so that's awesome. Let's keep that growing and keep that moving along. Aside from that, did I miss anything? Is there anything that you do a little bit differently? Affliction Lock is one of those specs that's a lot of fun, but it requires a lot of pre-planning, like I said. So that's just kind of how the way that works. But I am personally absolutely in love with this spec. It has always been my favorite through the entirety of World of Warcraft, and I hate it when it doesn't do good. Bring in an Affliction Lock into a dungeon in BFA, you were just asking to get kicked. And it did happen to me multiple times. Because I honestly tried, but it wasn't set up for doing good damage like that. But now with the Malefic Rapture change, it's fantastic. Stat weights as well, let's talk about that really, really quick, is Mastery, Haste, Crit, Verse, but you do need to weight your stats on raid bots, because right now I'm a little bit too high on Haste, where Crit and Verse have creeped up a little bit and are just a touch bit more important than Haste, although Mastery is going to be constantly the one that you're going to want to stack, because that is your Malefic Rapture, your dot damage, and everything else that moves along with it, and it synergizes very, very well. So aside from that, I hope that you found this guide informative, and we're going to go from there. Have yourselves a good one, everybody, and we'll see you on stream.